Good afternoon and welcome everybody. I too would like to start by acknowledging the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, the traditional owners of the land on which we're meeting today, and pay my respects to their elders past and present and to all other Indigenous Australians here today. And to Lee, thank you very much for that introduction. You yourself have been an important part of our attitude towards women in leadership and diversity at the Commonwealth Bank, and I'll come back to that right at the end. As you've seen from the video, we all started out here with the realisation, in fact, that given the large predominance of men in leadership positions in Australia, that meaningful change in the unacceptably low levels of women in leadership was going to have to be led, at least in part, by men. And the male champions of change under Liz Broderick's guidance was a response to that. Not the whole answer, but a critical part of the answer. And as we stand here today, nearly 5 years on, a lot of progress has been made. Later on at the lunch, you'll hear from some of our MCC colleagues on initiatives such as Targets with Teeth, such as the Panel Pledge, and other areas where we have directed our attention towards initiatives that we can commit to in order to achieve this goal. And the male champions of change have shown over a number of years their commitment to these initiatives, and that commitment has been shown in the prevalence of many of these things throughout companies in corporate Australia and other organisations represented by the male champions of change. Very early on, the male champions of change also left excuses at the door. One of the excuses that was commonly held at the start was the weak pipeline of women. And I can tell you that from the Commonwealth Bank's point of view, with 3 of our major P&L businesses run by women, 2 other of our executive team in staff roles as women, 3 exceptional non-executive directors who are women, the idea that you have to compromise on quality to get leadership, women in leadership roles is simply fanciful. So we left that excuse at the door. And we then also were willing to broaden the scope of the discussions to areas relating to women in our business and our community, which went alongside the leadership challenge but were a bit different from it. And in this front, I want to pay particular tribute to Rosie Batty and to others who had the courage to come and speak to the male champions of change and have us hear firsthand about the scourge on Australian society of domestic violence and about our personal responsibility as leaders of organisations to do something about it. So between these initiatives, the leaving of the excuses at the door, the broadening of the scope, over 5 years, a lot of progress has been made. But it is absolutely critical that today's lunch not be an exercise in self-congratulations and complacency. Yes, the initiatives are being done. Yes, some progress is being made, but we set out to make a meaningful and sustainable difference to the numbers of women in leadership roles, and the numbers are too slow. They're too small. We would not accept that level of progress in any other aspect of our business. We must not accept, as we stand here today, that enough is being done. And so we can reflect 5 years on at this juncture about the progress that's been made, but we must do so in a manner where we look forward to see and address and embrace the challenges that still lie ahead of us. So what is it going to take from here? Number one is that we must persist. One of the great things that I learnt from my predecessor and one of my great mentors, Ralph Norris, was that meaningful change anywhere is about committing to often simple things but doing it over years. And this is a good example. Panel pledges, targets with teeth, all roles flexible. These initiatives are all important. They do not change the world overnight. And as leaders and executives, we have to strike this balance between an urgency, a demand for more, a restless belief that this isn't fast enough, at the same time as the diligence and the patience to understand that it is only by committing to this for the long term that we can actually achieve the meaningful change. So number one is being persistent. Number two is listening. I can say from my personal experience that one of the great advantages of being in the Male Champions of Change is actually listening. Was having the opportunity to sit down with leaders I admire like David Morris and David Thodey and hear them talk about the fact, gosh, progress isn't fast enough, what can we do? To listen to what they're doing. To listen to competitors like Mike Smith, who in the boxing ring of day-to-day businesses, we like to punch each other. But on issues of this importance, we need to be prepared to stand back and say, gosh, much of what's being done in our competitors is excellent. What can we do to emulate it for the broader benefit of what we're trying to achieve? And that ongoing listening is going to be a critical part of our success. And in this vein, what I want to particularly emphasize for us as leaders is the importance of listening very closely to women for whom some of what we're doing, particularly flexibility, is a financial imperative, not a choice. Their voices are often hardest to hear. We must ensure that as we continue the progress on this path, we as leaders are listening to their voices and understanding some of their unique challenges. Beyond being persistent and beyond listening is the final and probably most important part of ongoing success, and that's actually really believing in what we're doing. Meaningful change comes from people, whether it's leaders or not leaders, who actually believe in the good of an outcome and strive to achieve it. And in our view, the business case for how diversity of women leadership makes your business better, that's now a given. The business case for the importance of flexibility for the productivity of the economy is a given. But authenticity is one of the great buzzwords of leadership today, and this is a real test for us about whether we really are prepared to walk the talk for the long term. Do we really believe in the change that we're trying to achieve? And on this note, to wrap up, I want to come back to the role that you played, Lee. Because sometime last year you sent me unprompted a book called The Wife Drought, which was written by Annabelle Crabb. And people running organisations know you do get a lot of books. And one of the arts is to know which books to pick up and read and which books you might politely put to one side. And I ought to note on that front, Chris Bowen, your book is one of the ones I will read. And I picked up Lee's book on a Friday night and I started reading it. Sorry, Annabelle's book, The Wife Drought. And after 15 minutes, I was in the first conversation with my wife. An extraordinary woman who worked for 15 years, became a senior partner in a law firm, then made the choice to step out of the workforce for a while to raise our children. And we started having a great conversation. Then I went further through the book and we invited Annabelle to come to a small dinner of women and men who had recently had children. And as a result of that dinner, one of the women wrote to me the next day and said, I went home and that night my husband agreed he would go and ask his work to do a 9-day fortnight, and the next day they agreed. And what Annabelle's book did is to teach us why actually we should believe this, because in the end, this is about striving for and celebrating personal choice. It's great for men to be in leadership roles. It's great for women to be in leadership roles. It's great for men to look after their kids. It's great for women to look after their kids. All that matters is that we unleash the potential that everyone has by realizing their personal ambitions through their personal choices. And if that's what motivates us, then on this element of women in leadership and other critical aspects of diversity, we really can achieve sustainable long-term change. Thank you.